So, welcome to Data Dialogues, a podcast brought to you by the Data Vault Innovators community, where we explore the latest trends and innovations in the world of data management. Today, we're joined by Bronwen Fairbairn and Ashleigh Choice for a conversation about women in tech. Welcome, Bronwen and Ashleigh.
Thank you very much, Claire.
So I guess the reason that this podcast came about is obviously International Women's Day. And there's always a lot of talk on that day about, what can we do? And let's not just be virtue signaling, and let's not just give all the women in the office a cupcake to show that we appreciate them. We want to do something real and something impactful and something hopefully a bit more long lasting, which was why this conversation came about, because we have women working in tech and we don't always hear from them or often hear from them. So there was that desire to create more of a conversation between women and about women. And so on that note, welcome again to you both. And let's start with a bit of an introduction. Maybe with yourself, Bronwen, who you are and what you currently do in tech.
Sure. Nice to meet everyone. My name is Bronwen Fairbairn. I'm a principal consultant for Ignition Data. So we're a team we're an organisation that is a consultancy firm and tries to go out and help organisations with their data assets, and we largely focus on Data Vault, but we're trying to look at that whole, how do you leverage the data that you've got, and how do you drive better decisions, etc. Okay, so personally, I'm a Data Vault expert. I've been working in the data space for 15 or so years, and been working with the Data Vault technology for the last 10 or so years. I'm really interested in predictive analytics, and that's how I got into this space, the idea that we can actually analyze data and make better decisions and make sure that we're working smarter, not just doing the same things and running the same script, but actually make sure that we're acting intelligently, and then as intelligently as we can. But one thing I've realized is that data quality is such an issue. We need to have good quality data before we can actually deliver good insights out of it. So that's why I'm kind of spreading that gap between techie and analytics and business.
Ashleigh, did you want to tell us a bit about yourself, who you are and what you do?
Yeah, sure. Hi, everyone. I'm a senior analyst currently in the logistics industry. I've worked across a few industries in the last 6 years, and I'm quite late, I guess, in my career into IT and data analytics. What I focus on now currently is bridging that gap between, I work in a very operational team, and bridging the gap between us and IT to get that data, get efficient, effective data into our reporting, and then how do we leverage that for decision making within the business and the projects that we run. How do we focus our efforts really along the supply chain that we work in to leverage our assets better, to leverage our people force better.
And so what was your initial spark to get into the tech industry? Were you both always heading that way, or what prompted that entry into this world?
Why don't you go first, Ashleigh?
For me, looking back, I think I always was in this space. I just never had the language or anyone who said, "Oh, did you know that building those reports or analyzing that data for your team?" Because I always saw a gap in that is actually IT and will eventually lead you there. I started in public relations, ironically enough, and went, "Oh, this is not for me," and managed to, in a previous role, end up working with a team to develop an application for credit assessments coming into higher education, and loved working with IT, building that, loved the back and forth around how do we design applications to better collect data for that decision making, rather than just a user inputting their history about the studies they've done. What else can we collect from that entry to then look at the trends of the types of students we're bringing in that were submitting applications, the progression through university as well. So I think that was really my entry, and then it just all went from there, and I fell in love.
Nice. And you didn't get to use any kind of statistics in the PR world?
Not there. I then very quickly jumped into another project and then another project.
Leapfrogged in.
But it was later on, probably leapfrogged into where I am now.
And what about yourself, Bronwen? Did you start in this world, or?
I've always been highly mathematical, which I consider as really just logic, using numbers. So, I mean, back when I was at school, I was invited to start studying university mathematics at La Trobe University while I was still in high school, and I got awards for being one of the top dozen or so mathematicians of my age in Australia. So I initially wanted to become a maths teacher when I was young and share my love of maths with other students. But I ended up thinking that was going to be a bit too hard. And started going towards IT because I thought maths and logic and therefore technology were all very much in sync. But then I found the data space. My first job out of university was naturally a data one, and I've been just delving more into data ever since.
In your happy place with logic. In your happy place with logic and structure.
My happy place with logic, yes. So yeah, just the idea that we can use data and mathematics with data to predict what's going to happen and analyze what is happening, I think is just really exciting.
Nice. And so what's been the most exciting thing that you guys have worked on to date, and why? Do you want to take it first, Ashleigh?
I was going to hand that to Bronwen, but I can take it.
I'll jump in. Because I'm really excited about this question. It was actually a project I did with Ashleigh, so it'll be interesting to see what she has to say. It was a student success project that we worked on together with one of the universities, and so it was looking at what students had done over time and trying to predict their eventual outcomes. And it was just, as I've said, data analytics and predictive modelling is really what got me into this space. It's really what excites me. So obviously this project was exciting from the get-go, especially because it's such a worthwhile insight to make too. It's not just, hey, how can we sell more X product? It was looking at how we can actually improve educational outcomes and help people to realize their goals of getting an education and going out into the world and achieving things. But it was also a really exciting team. It was a very dynamic team. I find it was quite a big team with a lot of people that were new to a certain area and ready to learn and ready to grow in the role. And I think that really brings fresh insights and fresh outcomes and opens up the discussion a lot more. It means that people are willing to suggest ideas and have more of a discourse about where things are going, not just go, this is the answer and I'm going to go down here. So as I've said, it was with the university sector, and that's one thing that I will mention. The university sector are quite an equitable industry. They're very supportive of women in that area. So it did have quite a lot of women on the team, but it also just had quite a lot of people who were willing to delve into a new project and try themselves out with new skills and take a step out there.
So Ashleigh, do you have a similar answer, or was it the same project for you that you found most exciting to work on?
For me, it was the same project as Bronwen, for a lot of the same reasons around. It was an incredible project in what it was delivering, and it was genuinely the output of that was supporting people and their journey in higher education. But I also really loved it for the complexity that it brought. I was very green coming in to a project of that size and into predictive analytics. It wasn't a space I'd been in before. So for me, it was a lot of growth and really set me on the trajectory to continue my study and education into a Masters of Data Science, and really wanted to go down the route of statistics and mathematics, which I found a passion for. So really enjoyed the challenges that it brought as well, because we were working across so many different teams. It was not just the predictive model, but it was the data engineering and the business understanding around where that data was coming from and how it was being generated, and how do we translate that into something that someone could then interpret and action at the end. Yeah. So I really enjoyed it.
So that passion for numbers and statistics and mathematics, that didn't come early for you? That you were going on a completely different route with the whole PR thing?
I don't know how I ended up in PR, because when I was going through high school, maths was always my favorite subject. I did physics, I did maths, I did science. I think it was just at the time, there weren't a lot of people who looked like me. There weren't a lot of women that I knew in those areas. And so I thought, oh, maybe I need to go into PR and marketing, or that's where I see a lot more women, I guess.
Okay. So both of you obviously have a real love for mathematics and numbers and statistics. If there were women wanting to go into this field, are there particular courses that you would recommend focusing on so that you can go directly into this world? Bronwen, do you want to take that one
first? Right. To me, it's not so much exactly what you do. It's more about the skill sets that you bring to the world and bring to the area. So to me, it's really just, if you've got curiosity and you're actually interested in how things work, not just what they do, but kind of the nuts and bolts underneath it, that's obviously essential for being in the technology space, I think.
Yeah.
You've got to have enthusiasm. And that's really just a working in teams issue. You are going to be working with other people, and if you aren't enthusiastic about what you're doing, people are going to notice it, and it's not going to work out. You've got to have drive to be here, and really want to do something with your time.
So a passion, not just a
passion. Yeah. And the other one is tenacity. There are going to be issues, there are going to be headaches. You're going to get halfway down the project, and it's going to completely implode. You really just need to have the strength of will to force through it and go the distance.
Because you said at the start you love numbers and you love logic and sense, and I'm guessing that probably in this world you come up quite a lot against barriers, that are quite frustrating, and have to kind of pivot and learn from those as well as that really factual scientific stuff.
Yeah, and there'll always be the issue of how much time do you spend prototyping something versus going on to the final solution. That prototyping work can sometimes be wasted, but then if you go straight into the final solution, then you can get expend a significant amount of your effort and your finances and find out that it doesn't work. So it's always an issue of where do you draw that line. Being agile helps with that a bit, but it never works out perfectly. There's always going to be problems, and you're always going to have struggles, and just you need to think about how things work, not just what they do. Have a passion and have energy to bring to the table, and have a commitment not to just give up at the first moment. From one thing I would actually say and this comes back to kind of that curiosity space, is one of my most exciting courses when I was personally at university was algorithms and data structures. So it was looking at the efficiency of arrays versus linked lists versus heaps, looking at kind of distribution trees or heaps for sorting and how you process data. And that kind of, I think, comes into that curiosity. Thinking about how things work and thinking about the efficiencies of how you store data, to me, was just really exciting and really interesting. And I think has been really useful to not just think about it at the high level, but think about it at that detailed level.
Yeah. What about you, Ashleigh, education-wise? What do What would you have done differently if you hadn't leapfrogged into it? Would you give any recommendations of particular things to study or focus on?
I feel like that's an interesting one. I did come back. I like the tenacity piece and just having that resilience. I do think with the background that I've had and doing a PR degree has actually really provided me with this fantastic skill set to be able to review and understand and have that level of communication back to the business area that I think is sometimes missing from a purely IT stream. I've leveraged that more in what I do now than I ever have.
Really interesting, because I deal with a lot of people in this space where it's very factual and it's very analytical, but it's very difficult to describe what it actually is. So you coming in with both those things is a real strong package.
Being able to unpack that business problem, I think so often you can interpret the problem or the issue that you're trying to resolve quite differently, and people understand that quite differently. And so having that ability and having that skill set that becomes more of a soft skill to unpack that and work with the business area to really understand, when they say this, does that actually mean Y? When they say X, does that mean Y? Or are we both on the same page? But for me, before I got into formal education and started doing my master's, I actually did a lot on just online platforms and online certifications and studies. They were fantastic to get that really base, very low foundational understanding. And I just built on it from there. I started with what I thought I could handle and understand at the time, and then that sparked my curiosity and desire to grow and build more and more. So I say you don't have to go into a full university education to start with and feel really overwhelmed with that. I think there's a lot online that you can access, and that can then grow your skill set into something bigger if you want.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I'm in a conversation today where people were talking about how much Data Vault has changed even in the last few years, and how people that have trained several years ago, are now trying to figure out all of these new advances that are coming through. So I guess that online training element is a great thing to be able to kind of keep abreast of all the digital transformation and all those changes after you're educated in something a long time ago. How are you? Is that what you think?
I think Ashleigh, that's a really good point. So especially with those soft skills, I think there's lots of free courses out there in project management and agile development and business analytics. And I think they're really useful to get a hold of and go through, even if you think you know the stuff. Just because it's a free course doesn't mean it's not anything to teach you. It's a variety of ideas and figuring out what works for you. You can always learn something new. So I've done short courses online, especially with the COVID. A lot of stuff's going online and becoming more accessible. I've done short courses online about agile project management and how to phrase a problem in manageable steps and make sure that you're reaching your long-term goal in a good way, but a way you can actually assess going on. I think it's really important, and a lot of people can miss that when they get focused on the technicalities. They can miss the fact that, hey, if I don't actually test what I'm doing as I'm going out and get user feedback, then I can go completely down the wrong track. And the business analytics that Ashleigh was mentioning, I think is exactly the same. Yeah, really, it's a skill that people can overlook because we're geeks and we get focused on the ones and the zeros. But it can really result in something failing as opposed to being hugely successful.
Yeah. And so what do you think we can do to encourage more women into the tech space? I think, traditionally there's been that perception, particularly in this field, that it's a very male-oriented space. Is there anything we could be doing to encourage more women into there?
For me, I think there's a couple of different things I think we can work on. And one thing that I've started doing in our organisation in particular is providing an example of a voice for women. We have this blog that we run internally, and I was noticing that it was a lot of the male kind of IT guys posting their ideas and sharing their content, and there wasn't a lot of female voice in there. And I think that's because we really hang back and go, I don't have all the answers yet. I don't know everything yet. I think that's really synonymous of who we are. And so I just decided post it anyway. It may not be all there, it may not be correct, but maybe if I start posting and sharing my ideas and my content, then it will encourage other women to go, oh, actually, yeah, maybe I could be part of that and I can join in and be part of that community. So I think that community space and podcasts like this are fantastic because it gives that view and that insight into that shared experience that encourage other women to feel a part of that and want.
Yeah. I think there's real power. Sorry.
Yeah, I entirely agree, Ashleigh. I think it's a gradual process. We're going to remove the social stereotype, but one of the main things that we can do is lead by example and actually have female voices out there so that women coming into the area don't feel so isolated. They can see that there's a community they can go in and they can join. It's already a diverse group of people in the industry and they fit into it more.
Yeah.
One thing I'd actually also say is to encourage women to come up and step up. I think that one thing, not very into social stereotypes, okay? I think that you can't just judge people on their gender or something like that. You've really got to treat everyone as an individual, and their individual potential is so much more significant than any little group or niche that they fit into. Yeah. So that's really what I think you need to do when dealing with people. But I will say that as a very, very vague generalization, women are probably more interested in the discussion and less interested in just going out there and saying, this is my opinion and this is the right answer, okay? Yeah. So one thing that we can do to encourage women is to actually go out there and ask people their opinions and ask people their experiences, not just go, what should I do in this situation, or what is the answer to this? Yeah. But what have you felt when you've been doing such and such? And I think you'll actually get a much more varied range of answers then from both genders and from all demographic groups. But it will actually probably encourage more women to come up and participate and have their voices heard.
Yeah. And I think there's real power in having the confidence to, like you say, actually put it out there, even if you don't have all the answers, and just start a conversation, spark an idea and see where it goes. I think that's good for all professionals, not just women.
Lack of fear is ignorance. Getting over your fear is bravery.
Yeah, absolutely. So who would you say has been your biggest role model or who has helped you focus your voice in technology, in the technological space?
I don't know if I necessarily say I have a defined role model, as probably people talk about that one person who's inspired you or you've followed the career direction of, or I like to take inspiration from a lot of different people. There have been a lot of women and men who have supported me in my role and my progression through, I think it's been the smaller conversations of people saying, apply for that role anyway. That might not be a role model, but has really helped. And I've been thankful for that kind of interaction rather than that one person.
Yeah. People that have given you a push as you go.
Yeah.
What about yourself?
I would agree. I definitely don't have I look up to Barack Obama and go, hey, that's my role model, the person I want to follow. It's more about one-on-one connections that I've had, and it's been more a succession of people as opposed to one overarching figure. So I've been lucky enough to work under quite a lot of really broad-minded and supportive managers of both genders. So I thank you to all the people that have had the generosity to support me and help mentor me. But I've particularly been able to work under quite a lot of strong women. So I started in the university sector, which I've said is actually quite supportive of women overall. And I've also worked at under Mandy Ross, who was she was voted as the best CIO in Australia back in 2012, and then was runner-up again as best CIO in Australia in 2015. So there've been quite a few organisations that I've worked for which have had really strong female leaders, and that's been important to see and given me the courage that yes, I can go and excel and reach these levels of success.
So it's all about seeing other people out there.
Yeah.
So what would you guys like to see put in place in order to support women in tech? Anything else? I mean, obviously these kind of conversations and seeing other women out there. Is there anything else that you feel would really, provide that support that people might need to take that jump into the tech space?
I feel like it's, and we've talked about this previously, but it's in the role and job descriptions and the applications coming in. Again, I think it's that fear that can kind of be there for women who think, I don't have everything. I don't have all the answers. I don't have all of those skill sets to tick every single box of those must-haves on that list. So that's a barrier to entry. I'm not going to apply. And I think it's maybe rethinking how that's worded and then setting that encouragement up to say, I may not have all of the skills, but I have some, and to jump in and take that leap.
Ashleigh, that's an interesting point. Do you think that issue is mostly at the graduate level and less so once you get further on in your career? Is it really a barrier to entry as opposed to a barrier to participation?
I think that's an interesting one to unpack. I guess I felt that mostly when I was coming in, even when I switched industries and looking at, I knew I had been doing this role for a long time. I wasn't new coming in. I'd worked on bigger projects. And when I switched roles, I still looked at that CV and went and thought to myself, oh, I don't have absolutely everything there. I don't have all the answers. And it was a colleague of mine who said, yes, you do. She's like, absolutely, give that a go. And so I think, yes, definitely at the very start, when you're jumping in, you haven't gained that tangible skill set, you haven't got that portfolio behind you. But I think it is still something as you're progressing further in your career and as we reach that next level, I think there's still that barrier for women that can be there because you're stepping up, and it's those levels as you step up that you might go, oh, I've had a couple of years experience, but does that really meet the years experience that's required or have been outlined?
Yeah.
I guess I've had the same experience, but I've always just assumed that was a gender agnostic thing. And never having been a guy, I can't quite tell if that's the case. I've always felt that that's really just everyone's experience when they apply for jobs. But maybe I'm not. So yes, that's an interesting thing to point out, I think. And yes, you aren't necessarily going to tick every box. If they say you must have this, you must have this, you must have this. In IT, the technology is changing so rapidly. It's unlikely that everyone will have experienced everything that they're asking. And there are a lot of jobs that I've applied for where the job has changed dramatically the moment I've stepped in the door. So having everything that they tick off their box doesn't mean that they've written the job ad correctly or they've gotten everything down pat. I completely understand what's happening. You really need to have the confidence to go, yes, I do have that curiosity. I do have the ability to adapt to new situations. I've got tenacity. I'm going to be able to learn on the job to some degree, and my excitement, I'm going to be able to commit and try out and learn with you and learn with this role to actually do what this role needs me to do.
That's such a good reminder about the job description almost getting thrown out the moment that you step into it, because, and I need that, even now I need that reminder as well, because you do tend to kind of look at the job description and think, oh, this is their must have. But really, it's like we talked about earlier, it's about having the passion and the tenacity and those kind of things as well. It's not just about the tick a box on this, and this. So that's a really good point.
We're in a dynamic world. We really need to be able to roll with punches.
Yeah. Nice.
One thing I'd also say, just because you may have heard a crying baby somewhat in the background here, One thing that I think is really important to help women to enter the industry is parental support from both sides, not just from women, but also men. We need to basically make sure that it's something that doesn't become, oh, if I hire a woman, I've got this extra cost here. If you hire a man, that cost should be there the same. It's just that it should be there for everyone. And then I think it will really encourage women to get into the workforce more and understand that men are there to support her at home, men are there to support women at home, and also women are able to work in the industry while also managing to have a home life as well.
Yeah.
And I think one other thing I'd also say is I don't really, as I've said, believe in stereotypes, gender stereotypes as well. I don't necessarily like the fact that we do X, Y, Z to support women, because I think that can actually result in reverse sexism. Okay, so and teach people that you're not capable of achieving. You need this extra level of support. So it's really, I'm really hesitant about where you provide support, and if that support is actually derogatory in any way or demeaning in any way. I think it's important that we teach people as individuals and give everybody the opportunity to push their boundaries as much as they want to and support them in answering their questions, in giving them the time and the space to do their own research and invest in their own projects. But we don't necessarily go, hey, you're a woman, you go over here and you get this box and you're only capable of this.
Yeah, it's that dangerous assumption that every woman's the same.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So what do you think about the community, the Data Vault community and other communities like this? Do you see value in it? And is there anything that you think should be added to it specifically to be supporting women/people in tech?
I really love that communities like this get set up and provide a foundation for that open communication and feeling like you have a space to go and be part of. You're not just kind of alone and isolated in what you're thinking and your ideas. And I love that these forums are set up to build that inclusion, and it breaks it down from just the idea of community and just the business that you're working in or the way you're regionally located. It breaks down those barriers across cities, across countries, to really build that idea generation and kind of learn from each other. So I love the idea for that, for this community and other ones like it. So
I guess I'd say the same. I think any opportunity you have to go and share and meet people is good. We kind of all sit in our little office spaces in front of our computer screen now and don't get out enough. And this is a great opportunity to do that, to reach a new set of people, all focused on Data Vault and the data community, the data space.
Yeah.
So to try and network and get ideas and share ideas and share growth. I think that it's, as I've said, it's especially important to go out and to ask people their opinion. And I think that'll result in more women coming forward and more participation from everyone.
Yeah. I know we've got to let you go soon, but I'd be really interested to know, because I think there's a huge amount of things that we could talk about as people in tech or as women in tech. But what are you most excited about this year? Like, you know, we're talking about the fact that the world's changing constantly. What are you guys really focused on and passionate about for this year in the industry?
I'm really passionate about low and no code solutions, and not probably from the perspective of we building an entire project in that space, but I think they're just a fantastic entry for people to get into analytics and data science or data and whatever they're building. That's where I started. I started with Power Apps and Power BI and being able to drag and drop different pieces on to make my projects work or to develop my solutions. And that really led me then to start delving deeper and start going into the code and start building my experience from there. So I'm excited to see the direction that low and no code goes in, the opportunities that it starts to bring up for people. It's an exciting space.
What about you,
I agree with you, Ashleigh. I think that, yes, low and no code solutions, it's just because we're in the IT space and just because we're geeks doesn't mean we've got to do everything ourselves. Mankind has evolved through using tools, and particularly within the data space, the number of tools coming out is just growing exponentially because the area is growing. The number of tools are also growing at the same rate, and how to leverage those tools to work smarter, not harder. I mean, it's exactly what we're trying to do. We're trying to look at data and rationalize the world. We're trying to make everything more intelligent so that you can help students to succeed in their university degrees. But the exact same thing needs to be done within the data and IT space itself. You need to see what tools you can use to actually deliver value faster, prototype things, get things out the door quicker, and test that something does actually work. That doesn't mean you need to stay there. That doesn't mean you can't add extra features with more custom solutions long term, but especially getting something across the line, that low and no code tool set is really important.
Yeah.
And one other thing I'd also say is the world is changing at such a faster rate. We've got gas problems and gas prices escalating suddenly. We've got the wars in Ukraine and economic and political instability.
Mm-hmm.
All of that comes and changes the paradigms that organizations are working in. And it means that data is once again even more important. Keeping abreast of what's happening in the outside world and how that can change your data and how that can affect your customers, I think is really important.
Yeah, I didn't start in this space, but just the more I research, data just touches everything. It's relevant and it tells the story. So I think that's it for this session. But I think we could definitely come back and talk more. So I really appreciate your guys' time. And for anyone watching or listening, search for Data Vault Innovators Community, either in your app store or online, and find out more content like this.
Yeah.
Thanks very much.
And Ashleigh and I are both on there, and we'll look forward to seeing you.
Absolutely.
Excellent. Thank you, guys.